Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. It's going to be a busy week here as we bring you 3 episodes, starting with this interview with Orioles relief prospect Tyson Neighbors, which will be coming up on this episode, which is brought to you by IQ Bar, our exclusive snack, hydration, and coffee sponsor. IQ Bar protein bars, IQ Mix hydration mixes, and IQ Joe mushroom coffees are delicious, low sugar, brain and body fuel you need to win your day. The Ultimate Sampler Pack is a great way to try all IQ Bar products and flavors. You get 9 IQ bars, 8 IQ Mix sticks, and 4 IQ Joe sticks. All IQ Bar ingredients are clean label certified, entirely free from gluten, dairy, soy, GMOs, and artificial ingredients. All IQ Bar products are packed with clean, delicious ingredients to keep you physically and mentally fit, like magnesium, lion's mane, and more. With over 25,000 five-star reviews and counting, more people are fueling their busy lifestyles with IQ Bar's brain and body boosting bars, hydration mixes, and mushroom coffees. Their ultimate sampler pack includes all three. IQ bars become part of my daily routines, whether it's starting my morning with IQ Joe, grabbing an IQ bar or IQ mix to refuel or rehydrate after a hard workout. And right now, IQ Bar is offering our special podcast listeners 20% off all IQ Bar products, including the Ultimate Sampler Pack, plus free shipping. To get your 20% off, text MLB to 64,000. Text MLB to 64,000. That's MLB to 64,000. Message and data rates apply. See terms for details. And now I'll turn it over to our guest. He was originally chosen by the San Diego Padres out of Kansas State in the 4th round of the 2024 draft and was acquired by the Orioles last year in a deadline trade, finishing the season up with Double-A Chesapeake. He's appeared in a few games with the Orioles in Major League Camp this spring. He is Tyson Neighbors. Tyson, how are you?
Good. How are y'all? Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you here. And I just have to start off with this, which is how is your first camp in the Orioles organization going?
It's going great. I've been here since, I think, January 18th, so obviously eager to break and, figure out where I'm going to be, but I've enjoyed, grinding it out with the boys and getting ready for the season.
You've gotten into a couple of games already, like Zach said, and we had Jake Rill on the other week, the Orioles beat writer for MLB.com, and he said, when prospects like yourself come up from minor league camp, you guys get the full experience. Like, there's no treating you guys different, and everyone's getting involved in the drills and game prep. On the pitching side, though, like, how much time do you get with the major league coaches like Drew French and Klimek and Mitch Plassmeyer and get to talk through those outings?
Briefly, usually after the outing, just like right after the inning. I'd say almost every time I've thrown. There was once where we didn't get to immediately after because it was one of those instances where the starter was still going back out for the next inning. So obviously they're still game planning and everything like that. But during that time, I actually got to talk to Albert Suarez for like 5 innings, which was great, and Mike Schilt at the same time, just like getting both of their inputs and insight. So it's been good being there. They treat you like a big leaguer, and yeah, it's good to learn from everybody.
Did you get any time with Schilt when you were with the Padres, or is this your first time now that you guys are together here in Baltimore? You guys got to meet up?
Yeah, we met when he was with the Padres. He spoke to the minor league camp a few times, and I went up to him after and just introduced myself briefly and like a few questions here and there. But and then of course I pitched for him in big league camp with the Padres, so we talked a handful of times. But it's been good to reconnect. I've had a probably hour convo with him a couple weeks ago, and then we kind of check in at least once or twice a week. He's always around. He's been a great help.
And spring training seems like a pretty laid-back atmosphere, but did you get a little more ramped up that it's big league spring training, you're in the games? How does that feel compared to, like, just the minor league games at Ed Smith or live?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot better than the atmosphere than backfield games, but we're all still working on stuff. It's definitely compete mode when you're in the game, but it's also, with that in mind, it's spring training, right? You're still working on things that you want to show in the season, and all of our stats reset, as soon as whatever it is, April 1st, whatever.
Yeah, you seem like a guy that you use that adrenaline to amp yourself up and get those high leverage situations. Is that the case? It's only been 2 months since I've been able to follow you since you came to the Orioles organization closely, but does that sound about right?
100%. I, that's a, that's my number one thing. Like I rise to the environment, the occasion, the adrenaline. Like I love pitching with that. In that environment, you can't recreate it. You can't fake that. You're in that situation, and heart rate goes up, but everything just focuses in, and as the competition rises, like my stuff rises. The compete rises, all that. So
Yeah, I love that. But again, you were obviously came over at the trade deadline last year, so only a few months in a uniform for the Orioles organization. Just an introduction to anyone that's listening that maybe doesn't know your pitch mix. What are you working with, and then what pitches in your repertoire have you been working on the most over the offseason?
yeah, so I've lifetime reliever. Kind of fun fact: I relieved in high school. I've always been a reliever, but got a carry four seam, just rides, really high arm slot. Um, got a gyro, but get some steeper VAAs from that arm slot, and then 12-6 curveball, and yeah, kind of mix it up. Sometimes it's all heaters, sometimes all sliders, sometimes all curveballs, sometimes it's even mix. So kind of just depends day to day situation, what the hitter's calling for, all that stuff. So
I know you've mentioned in other interviews that you do look at analytics. There are certain things you like to look at. How do the analytics help you, not just with your pitches, but your pitch shape? And then how have you found the Orioles organization to be with supplying you with the data that you're looking for?
yeah, I think analytics are great, but I think at the end of the day, like you got to be in compete mode, and whatever you have that day, you got to go out there and dominate. So I think it's good to have a balance of it all, but I think it's always great to have a great understanding of what these analytics mean and how they can benefit you. The Orioles have been really good as far as providing the information, also like digesting it. There's analytics. They have analytics for everything, right? But they're not always usable. Or if we don't know what they mean, what can I do? Like what is a horizontal approaching or vertical approaching? Like what is that? But actually quantifying that and saying that this could lead to this result or something like that really helps.
You mentioned lifetime reliever. Yeah, I don't see any starts in college, summer ball, none of it. Has there been any desire to start or any like when you were at Kansas State, coaches ever come to you and be like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" Because we actually talked to Micah Ashman a few weeks ago, sometime over the offseason. I know he's kind of been the same way, lifetime reliever. He just kind of laughed and was basically like, "Hell no, like I'm never starting.
Yeah.
Give me the ninth inning." Is that kind of where you're at?
Yeah, I mean, I just love that, like we were talking about earlier, the adrenaline, like the bulldog mentality. I think there's not a crazy amount of pitchers in general that want that all the time, and can succeed in that type of environment. Don't let the game speed up, stuff like that. So I think like lean into that. If I'm good at it, why not? Just stay there. But to your point, at K State, they did ask my junior year if I wanted to start, and I was like, nope, I'm not doing that. Just give me the ball in the ninth or eighth, whatever we need, and we'll win a lot more ball games. That's what it came down to. It was like if we're if we have a lead in the seventh, eighth, ninth, because in college sometimes I go 3+. Uh, I'm probably going to affect more ball games out of the pen than it would be with in college. You get what 15 starts maybe. So that, and I just really didn't want to start. So
Love that. I mean, in the nicest way possible, we want to see psychopaths out there in the late
yeah,
innings, right? You want to see that
exactly.
high energy, like
Yeah,
walk off the mound with the strikeout. And I think this organization has quite a few now between you, Levi Wells, Teddy Sharkey when he's healthy, to name a few. But yeah, it's fun.
Nice. Speaking of, it seems like not only did you come over with like pretty much your entire Padres draft class there at the trade deadline, but Also, I know you worked with Thomas Eshelman too when you both were in the Padres organization. He's back with the Orioles. Like Orioles fans are familiar with him when he pitched in the majors here with in Baltimore. But as a coach, what is he bringing into the organization?
Yeah, it's always awesome to have the guys, that have been there before, done that. Like they understand, I say they, Esh and those guys, understand what it's like to be, in double A, triple A, like what we truly have to do to get to the big leagues, what we have to do to stay, and be an established big leaguer and have impact up there, but also, you know, they're learning, the insider like information on the analytics and biomechanics and all this stuff. And it's kind of a cool hybrid to where, he can bridge it to you. You've got like the super analytical biomechanic approach, then you have like the old school approach, and you can kind of be the, I don't know, like translator type thing for lack of better terms to, get across to players. And actually, I was a part of the hiring process kind of for Ash because they can't
Yes.
interview him while he was currently employed with the Padres at the time. So they called me and was like, so what do you think about Ash? And I, talked to him for 30 minutes about him. And then I called him right after. I was like, dude, are you interviewing? He's like, dude, I can't. I didn't even know that was happening, but thanks for the heads up. And then before I knew it, he's in the O's org. So great to have
That's
him.
That's an
that's
awesome
awesome.
story right there.
Yeah, I know. I think I only found out because I think he followed us on social media, and I saw his bio was like Orioles pitching coordinator. And I'm like, I knew he was with the Padres, and I put something out about that. And I know we had a couple of Padres fans that follow the minor leagues reach out and are like, that sucks. Like that we're frustrated he's gone. You guys got to go to him.
Yeah, it's definitely a good one.
So you talked a little bit about Albert Suarez. Has there been any chance to interact with any of the veterans on the major league side when you've been up there this spring, and who's been particularly helpful for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly been like, I'm in the bullpen for the day, right? It's backup, so you don't typically just roll up to guys who are, pitching that day and be like, yo, like, what's up, what's this, what's that? Like, I'd love to do that, but obviously, you got to have some type of feel. So, um, a lot of like the NRI guys I've got to talk with, and actually was catch play partners with Eric Torres briefly at K State while he was preparing for the draft. And I was an early enrollee for college, but Suarez and I really did have a great talk, and uh, still, if I go up there, like we'll still talk for a little while. But I mean, those big league guys get to leave during the fifth inning, I think, of those games, and Albert stayed for all nine. And he's got family at the house. He's definitely got better things to do than talk to a double A arm about baseball. But that just shows how much he cares, and it's great to have guys like that that'll put their arm around you and give you the insight of what it's like to pitch in the big leagues, what it's like to pitch overseas. Like, it's always good, to get information from those guys.
I don't know anything about Albert Suarez personally, but just from the outside looking in, he gives off major like future coach vibes just from
Yeah,
watching him on TV and interviews and stuff.
100%.
And one thing that we've heard in the last few years is the adjustment that pitchers have to make from Double A to Triple A with the baseball. Using a different kind of baseball in the lower levels of the minors, you get up to Triple A, you're using the major league ball, and that sometimes can be a challenge for pitchers. How have you been preparing for that adjustment?
They just had me throw big league balls all spring training. I haven't touched a minor league ball. And also did that last year with the Padres in spring training until like maybe the last 2 weeks when before break. But I really haven't had any shape changes with the big league ball, which is a little strange. I feel like because most people, you lose vert or gain horizontal or anything like that. But I think just with the higher arm angle and spin efficiency, like I mean, gyros are low spin efficient, so they're not really going to change. The slot helps me still carry the heater, and then the curveball, another spin efficient pitch. So I'm not really, losing out too much with the big league ball. The spin rate, it's gone down like maybe 100-ish, but that I asked some of the coordinators and other guys, and they say sometimes like a buffer period with the big league ball. It's like just getting used to it, even though maybe your shapes aren't changing. Maybe it's spin for a little bit. Maybe it's just feel for being able to put it in the zone type of thing. But it's been good, working with the ball. I mean, hopefully, at some point I'm there and using that ball. So, it's good to get familiar with it. Practice for the job you want, not the one you have. So,
We've seen a few examples, like Brandon Young. I don't know if you've talked to him
yeah, I've
much,
met him.
but he had a great IVB in his fastball in Double A, and then he had an adjustment period when he got to the Major League Ball, Triple A ball. But then an off season went by, and it was the next season right back to where it was. Like, how do you train? You think it's just a buffer period where it's just time, or do you actually have to focus on certain things to get it back to where you want it?
I think it can be both. I think sometimes maybe it's like mentally like, oh, this is a different baseball. I've never really been a guy, even if it's got like a scuff on it, I'm like, I'll throw it, and like a baseball is a baseball. It's got seams and it's got leather, and I've got to throw it over the plate. But then also too, it is different. It's a lot harder. Like the leather doesn't have as much give as a minor league ball does. The seams are like wider, but not as tall. So it's just a little feel different. In between the two seams on the top, there's less white. It's more just seam. So sometimes different, seam orientation and like seam shifted wake stuff will end up playing out a little bit different. And then like sweepers usually will gain some more sweep with that big league ball. So like field control with that. But as far as like my arsenal, I really haven't. There's been like maybe a day or two where the IVB will go down, but then in that day I'll still have 22 or 23 vert at times. So who knows if it's the baseball or it's just me being mechanically inefficient. But try to stay with like the clean fuego ball or the baseball with the black line through it to stay on top of spin efficiency and keep my shapes.
That's awesome. Well, the last question I have, and we usually ask the pitchers this when they come on. Say it was the bottom of the ninth, game's on the line. For some reason, you have to pinch hit and go up and face one of your teammates in the organization. Who would you least want to face in that situation, and why is it Gerald Ogando, who everyone seems to say?
Yeah, right when you said that name, I was like, that'd probably suck because I'm right-handed hitting. Like, that's not going to be fun. I'd probably break my hand. I'd swing really hard for sure, but I don't know if I'd be within a foot of whatever he's throwing. But he's definitely wouldn't be a fun at bat, even for guys who hit every day. So I couldn't imagine picking up the bat for the first time in 5 years and getting carved by that.
Yeah, I was about to ask you. You just mentioned lifelong reliever. When was the last time you picked up a bat for a competitive at bat, even in high school or college?
If you count like fall ball, like scrimmages, probably then, because I came into K-State as a two-way and hit pretty decent, but I pulled my hammy and I was throwing 97 as a freshman, and they were like, yeah, like you can still hit if you want, but I'll tell you what's best for you is going to be like just pitch. And I was like, fine, I'll do it. I got to order a bat though. I got further than most. I got to order the bat, so I did something for the hitters. They had an extra bat.
What's your scouting report as a hitter going into college? What were you thinking?
Shoot, don't like. I mean, if you just threw me like sliders down and away and like told me it was going to be a ball, I'm still probably going to swing. I hit the heater, adjust the curveballs, change ups, but the like gyro was like invisible. Like I didn't know how to hit it.
Nice. I would just like to say before we let you go, since we have this opportunity to talk with you, I know we did an episode last year leading up to the trade deadline, and we had members of our Patreon community submit mock trades because last year as an Orioles fan, it was not a lot of fun for Orioles fans last year. But by the time the trade deadline got here, we're like, let's look ahead to the future. But I don't remember who submitted it, and I don't remember the players involved. It was a 1-for-1 deal, Orioles Padres, and I said on the show that if we're gonna do a deal with the Padres, I want Tyson Neighbors included in this deal, having watched you at K-State, followed your career, seeing that early success you had with the Padres. What is something else I like to hear from the players that come on the show and talk about, maybe not necessarily their struggles, but like their transition to pro ball? Because I feel like it really helps us kind of put all this into context. I've been doing this for almost 10 years, and I feel like for a lot of fans, baseball is just a game of infinite numbers, and a lot of times it's just like you're just a stat line. They look up your player page, and that's all they see. But have you noticed anything like? What aspect of that transition to pro ball has been maybe not difficult, but maybe more eye-opening than you thought? You're like, whoa, wow, I didn't know that was going to impact me mentally or physically as much as it did. Or what has that transition been like for you?
I think two things, probably mostly just like the schedule, like the season. Like, in college, I threw it back to back to back. I threw back to back multiple times. One day rest, like 40 on Friday, 50 on Sunday, like, and it was, it wasn't the best, but like I went out there and competed and I still threw the same velo, like felt good enough, type of thing. And now, like, just to think that it was going back to back to back, and then like you have to be ready the next day. Like that's not like a thing now, And even if you're not pitching, you're still in the dugout, and that drains energy out of you. Your CNS, your central nervous system, like it gets fried, And playing was 140 games in a minor league season, like that's a lot more than the 55, 60 in college. And I don't think I realized that at all in college. I was like, that's just like the Northwoods, I played in the Northwoods and it was like 72 games, 75 days. And I was there for probably 60 days of it. I was like, oh, that wasn't that, strenuous on my body, but I didn't understand. I was on like basically a schedule and I was throwing maybe twice. If I got lucky, 3 times a week. And now it's like almost expected of you to throw 3 times a week, and especially in the big leagues, like you've got to be ready every day, and through 160 game season, so 162. But yeah, I mean, that seems like a big change for me. It was like going into it, I got to like the All-Star break, and I was like, golly, we have like 70 more games left. Like this is insane. But it's fun, like if you love baseball, you love to compete, like it's just another opportunity every day, opportunity to go out there, flush it, good or bad, and go out there and compete again and again and again. Like it's our job, but it's also a kid's game. Like, have fun with it. I think a lot of guys, it'll get to their head in professional baseball, like this is a job now, like, and they put that extra pressure on them. It sometimes can take a toll mentally. And then, yeah, I mean, stay loose, have fun, flush it, you know, got 140 games, there's always tomorrow, right? And professional baseball, it seems like. So
Yes. Well, and you talk about that grind there for fans listening, maybe to give you a quick peek of kind of who you are off the field. What's your go-to to get away from the game for a couple hours? If you have, are you a movie buff? Is it golf? Is it video games? Finding a fishing spot wherever, what city you're in? Like, what's your go-to?
yeah, I love fishing and video games. I'm fishing all the time, and then if fish aren't biting, I'll come home and play the show. I was playing the show right before hopped on this, so sometimes Call of Duty or Fortnite or whatever the boys are on. I don't like playing video games by myself that much, but the boys are on a certain game, I'll download it and grind and beat them at it.
And that's the mindset we love. So, yeah, thanks for coming on. And we're really excited to see how you do this season. And we think there's a chance you make your major league debut this year. So good luck.
Yes, sir. That's the goal. Appreciate it. Thank y'all for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Tyson Neighbors, Orioles relief prospect. We will be back later on this week with Steve Molesky of Steve on Baseball. We're going to break down everything that's going on in Orioles camp, as well as get into a little bit of Orioles prospect news, so be sure to check that out. In the meantime, you can follow us on many social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky, and Twitch. We're also over at Substack, OriolesOnTheVerge.substack.com. And while you're browsing around the internet, be sure to hit our Patreon community and it's time to become a member today at the $3, $5, or $10 levels and have access to bonus coverage from Bob, Nick, and myself throughout the regular season, monthly updates to our top 50 list, and a whole lot more. And as a quick note, on March 29th, Bob and I will be joined by Connor Newcomb of Locked On Orioles for a live show at Checker Spot Brewing. Checker Spot's located at 1421 Ridley Street in South Baltimore, not far from Camden Yards. So if you have tickets to that afternoon's game between the Orioles and the Twins, stop by, check out the show ahead of time. If you don't have tickets to the game, stick around after the show and watch it at Checker Spot. Great place to watch the game, good food and drink, so be sure to check that out. We will have more details on some upcoming shows as well as when we join Connor on Wednesday night on his show. For Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens, this is Zach Spedden. You've been listening to Orioles on the Verge, part of the Believe Podcast Network.